Also makes me your host. So I'm very pleased to introduce you guys to a session about sustainable meeting management, how digital platforms transform a strategic event year. So I'm going to hand over to the guys to introduce themselves and take you through this session. Questions, we are using Pigeonhole. If you haven't already used Pigeonhole, you can scan the QR code. Or if you have some questions and don't want to use Pigeonhole, we can do that with a roving mic at the end of the session. So I'll talk to you at the end. Over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Tim. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to meet you. As Tim said, we're here to talk about sustainable meeting management and how digital platform can support them throughout your strategic event year. Just a very short, brief introduction, short and sweet. Hi, I'm Lisbeth. I'm Director Digital Solutions at Magnid. It's a platform for obviously digital and sustainable event formats. And here we have...
Yes, and I'm... I'm Lennart. I represent Proske today. Proske is a full-service agency specialized on strategic meeting management as well as event consultancy, and I'm dedicated to the field of digital solutions as well as sustainability.
Yes, and here we are. We would like to start our little talk today with trends 2024. Where will the event industry be going? We've done some research across different platforms, and of course we're looking at sustainability. It's part of our title, and I think we all agree that sustainability has moved from a nice-to-have to a must-have factor within event management. Hybrid and virtual meetings, of course, they've been around. However, there's been a shift of how we've used platforms more short-term, more, let's say, unstrategic, and how that is now going to shift into a more strategic way of making use of platforms. It's moved from a mere hosting facility to actually a strategic partner throughout the year. Technology, of course, is another driver. It's huge innovation, a lot of trends coming up, and especially when we also think of the experiential technology, talking about metaverse, augmented reality, and so on. It definitely will be something we will be talking about in 2024. Costs and budget management, also a very, very big topic in 2024. Costs are increasing, budgets are being cut. Suppliers availability might be something that we have to deal with. And yes, of course, data and analytics also keeps being a trend. It's probably not a trend, it's a constant. And it's the underlying foundation, so to say, of everything that we're going to look at. So if we think about what questions event planners have to tackle is, where are my budget limitations? If I have little money to spend, where do I spend it with the biggest potential to maximize my return on investment? Do I do in-person? Do I do virtual? Do I do both? Do I do hybrid? Where can technology support me in all of that? How can I increase engagement with my attendees? How can I make my content more relevant? Relevance is actually key these days. Big variety of offers in virtual meetings. How do I actually keep my audience on track? What can I learn from my previous events to make my future events even better? And just as if we were adding an extra layer of complexity to it, sustainability is definitely something that we're looking at in the next couple of years. And I think Lennart is going to give you a little bit of an introduction into sustainability now.
Yes, because why do we actually have to focus on sustainability? The answer is because it's just more than a trend. It has become a necessity in our society because we have global challenges such as climate change, social injustice, and so on that we have to tackle as a society. And of course, the event industry has its fair share in that as well. So the event industry impacts our environment, of course. We can think about food waste. We can think about a carbon footprint that our in-person events also have on our environment. Just as an example, imagine you attend in person like an average conference of 3 days. The whole conference more or less emits the same amount of carbon dioxide as 95 cars with combustion engines would emit over the entire year. So it's a huge carbon footprint that in-person conference actually emit. But sustainability is about more than just environmental protection. If we look at the Sustainability Development Goals of the United Nations, you see, for instance, the goal number 5, gender equality. And if we look at the ETL speaker lineup, we see it's more or less a 50-50 share of male speakers, of female speakers, as we have it here as well, 50-50. But the industry average is different. So the industry average, we have a male-dominant speaker lineup usually. So that's something we can tackle. That's something we can think about, and we have to think about in order to tackle social injustice as well. So if we manage to operate all our event planning activities within our planet's boundaries, then we can contribute to the sustainable development goals. And we can make sure that the negative impact we might have on environment, on society, that we can turn this around into a neutral impact, maybe even into a positive impact. But it doesn't end there. If we integrate sustainability into our strategies, if we perform risk assessments, if we look at opportunities that come with sustainability performance, we create resilience for future changes in our society, in our environment, so we are better prepared for what comes in the future. And at the same time, we meet the demands of the society. We meet that they want us to be more sustainable, and with that, by showing them, yes, we are, yes, we can be more sustainable, we can actually lead the industry, and we can attract new clients, attract new talents, and so on. But it's not only for society's demand, it's also legal requirements. The European Union, you know it all, we have a new restriction called the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, and it affects us all, indirect or directly. And by focusing on sustainability early enough, we can also make sure that we meet these legal requirements that are coming in the next years. So sustainability is not only about environmental protection, it's about the planet, it's about our society, all these different aspects, and most important, it's about integrating it into an overarching strategy to finally not only be less negatively impacting on our planet and so on, but to be profitable. Because in the end, it's a business strategy. It's about profit as well.
And if we look at the statistics, roughly 49% of event planners are already explicitly including sustainability into the event planning policies. Hands up, who of you has a sustainability policy for event planning? Very good. Like to hear that.
Perfect. So we saw a few hands. That's already great. You're one step ahead. Because what actually is a sustainability policy and why should we have it? It's a framework. It allows us to operate within guidelines and to really integrate sustainability into the strategy. And sustainability policies usually are about the daily operations of a company. But with event planners, it's a bit different because it's not only our daily operations that affect environment and society. Actually, the event planning itself is a huge impact, as you've seen in the beginning on the numbers. And sustainability policies help to really get this into a strategy. We look here at energy consumption, at how we impact the climate, water consumption on the destination, waste management prior to the event, during the event, after the event, of course. But we also work with a lot of different stakeholders. We have the event participants, like all of you, you are now participants of the ETL. We have speakers, we have partners, we have our clients, of course. So the society impact is very important as well. Labor and human rights, but also everyone wants to be included, of course. We don't want to leave anyone out. We don't want to we want to prevent discrimination, of course. And when we talk about sustainability, it's important that we look at it from a holistic approach, that we look at it from the whole supply and value chain, and that we communicate about it in a transparent way so that everyone feels involved, included, and understands why we do certain actions to be more sustainable. And as mentioned, if we integrate all this in a strategy, the ultimate aim for us as a business, of course, is more profit. Now let's go back to our meeting plan over the whole year. Now imagine as an event planner, a client approaches you, this is our meeting plan. Along with that, the expectation comes, how can we do that more sustainable? And best practice would be to apply a four-step strategy. So we start with looking at the impact areas. Which areas of the event planning or of the event that we are planning, which areas are impacting our society, our environment the most. And these areas we try to tackle. And then we set targets and we set specific actions and measurements on how we can actually improve in these areas. And based on all this, what we have defined, we then start selecting suppliers and partners that help us along the way with implementing those. Now, if we have a sustainability policy in place, that does not replace this 4-step strategy, but it puts it into an overarching strategy for the whole event year. Because that's important. If you tackle each event one by one, you can improve sustainability, but you start each time from scratch. And it's important to really use these targets that you have defined, use the KPIs, compare what you did in the last event, use it for the next event to really get it into a strategic context. Now that was a lot of theory. Let's try something more hands-on. What you see here is an exemplary matrix of typical operational fields of event planning on the left side. And in the top you see the impact areas that I mentioned that are usually part of a sustainability policy. I don't want to go into detail here, but what I want you to understand is this is basically how an in-person event could look like. Now, if we look at the same thing for virtual events, or let's say we use this event and we transform it into a virtual event, then you see a lot of areas are now grayed out. This is because event logistics and travel activities are simply eliminated. We don't have them for digital events because no one needs to travel anymore. Of course, that doesn't mean that digital events are sustainable, because in digital events we still have a high energy consumption caused by streaming, by traffic transfer and so on. But we also have a social component that we need to consider. Now the question is, can digital meeting formats be the answer to all of our problems?
And before we get into the answer of that, let's have a look at what digital meeting formats are made of, what the benefits are of having digital meetings. Of course, healthcare, digitalization, as we just heard, sustainability, they're the more obvious ones. I'm going to leave them aside. But if we take duty of care, for example, bigger companies have travel policies that have changed drastically over the couple of past years. Factors such as travel restrictions, travel bans, employee well-being, etc. have been added to those policies, which also may mean that there will be less travel opportunities, for example. At the same time, we also are confronted with new work models. Policies such as work from anywhere or travel while you work are very, very important to employees these days, but also makes it more difficult to get all stakeholders into the same location for having meetings. And we also do experience that our work structures, our workflows become more and more digital. So we kind of have the same expectation when it comes to that, to our meeting culture that we have within a company. So that's all activating a thought to go more into digital meeting formats, or at least to supplement the face-to-face meetings with digital meeting formats. New virtual formats also make it a lot easier these days to implement digital meetings. Think 4 or 5 years back and think now, what a huge change we had. The last item I want to touch on here is the economic change. Yes, we do see increasing costs globally. We do see suppliers being less available. We do see budget cuts across companies. So that also has an effect on why digital meetings can actually be a benefit to your strategic meeting program. The virtual event industry is going to grow quite massive until 2028. At the same time, virtual meeting formats have also changed in how they're being set up. They're lasting longer. There's more and more offer out there. You have competing against a lot more other virtual meeting formats. The duration has shortened. So many different kinds of factors that we have to think about. So how do we bring it all together? By looking at it sustainably, holistically. So if you think of your strategic meeting management program that you've might had in the past, add a supportive digital platform to it, holistically, strategically, not one-off, and also consider your sustainability achievements that you would like to see over the next couple of years. And if you bring all of that together in one format and think of it ahead of time and not event by event, I think that's a pretty good start. Why should we look at we talked about a sustainability policy just then. Why should we consider a technology policy as well? So if you bring together all the different requirements that you have for events and choose a or two or maybe three digital platforms that you regularly work with, there's a lot of benefit to it. So you only have to do your security assessment once, twice, or maybe three times. And if you go back to these platforms, you already have an established structure. You can, if you work with platforms long term, think about integrating your existing IT ecosystem into it. So tools that you already work with, build an API to make sure that the data that you collect across the different platforms is actually coming together. Eventually it will have a cost benefit because the setup costs you have once, costs will decrease event by event by event. Coming back to the data point, and of course if you are centralizing your event formats in what one platform is, that you learn a lot about your users. You learn who they are, you learn what their behavior is, you learn what their preferences are, which helps you to build targeted user journeys. Again, coming back to the relevance factor, only when a meeting is really relevant to your audience, they will come back, which is quite important considering the wide variety of offers that we have in the market at the moment. To give you an example, where do we start? How have we approached this with one of our clients? In this case, it was a client from the pharmaceutical industry. We were planning an investigating meeting. It was a series of 4 events. Normally, they would have happened face-to-face, all 4 of them. And they have approached us with how can we make this more sustainable, both from an environmental impact consideration, but also cost and time-wise. So we sat down with them and said, okay, what is your goal? What do you want to achieve with these kinds of events? They said, well, the first event is very important to us, that people meet, that they bond, that they build a network, that they communicate. So that's when we said, okay, then an in-person event probably is the best choice for you. The second and the third meeting were more about giving updates, asking questions, coming back to maybe special cases. And that's where we said, well, you could approach this virtually, saving everyone the time they would have to spend to travel, go to the meeting, carve the time out of their work schedule. And we've hosted them in Magnid, which is the platform that we have developed. So you can see the drop in cost. And the cost dropped even further for the second meeting, because for the second meeting, the second virtual meeting, we could utilize the existing infrastructure that we already had implemented for the first one. Now, looking at the fourth meeting, we again said, what is your goal? And they said, well, we want to foster the relationships that we have built. We want to continue growing with them. Maybe they would want to participate in future studies, which is why we said, okay, well then an in-person event probably doesn't make sense here again. Also, study is completed, bring them all together, do a thank you. If the goal would have been for this last meeting, just to present the data of the study, and that's it. You could have gone virtual and had, again, a huge impact and cost saving. So all these kind of questions come along when it's about to decide whether you want to go virtual or meet in person.
Yes, and here we have a somehow comparison on what is actually beneficial for in-person events, what is beneficial for digital events. So in general, value creation, when we talk about in-person events, we can really leverage that we have the personal touch. We can focus on networking. We can focus on involving the audience into what we do at the event. We can foster interaction and can really focus on co-creation, ideation, and collaboration. Whereas with digital events, we have a longer range actually that we can use. For in-person events, people travel to the event and then they go, and then they are kind of lost. We can follow up, but it's not really effective. But if we use digital solutions, or if we have a digital event, we have a longer range where we can engage with them. And we can use this for information sharing, for trainings, and we can use it to build up a community. Because with a community, you need a kickstart, but then you need some kind of platform where you can, again, contact them, where you can place new content, where you can get them up to date and engaged. So this is important for us, that we don't want to say, okay, digital events are the future, but digital platforms help you to really get the best out of in-person events and digital events, not only from a sustainable perspective, but also from an event performance perspective, to really get the best out of both. What you need for that is a very flexible digital platform.
And just coming back to what we had iterated at the beginning of the presentation, especially when you're running on a tight budget, you really want to spend the money where it's giving you the best return on investment. That is where these factors that Lennart just have presented to you actually play an important role in decision making. Now, let's assume you've asked yourself the question, should I do my meetings virtual, should I do them hybrid, should I do them in person? The next question you would have to ask yourself is, well, what do I need in my virtual event? What is the platform capabilities that I need to have in order to reach my event goal? And event goals are very different, so there is no right and wrong answer. There is no one-size-fits-all kind of platform. So we've tried to cluster it a little bit and break it down. So you have your least complex meetings where you just need a very basic video conference platform, like Teams or Zoom. And here, even though it's a very low complex meeting and it's easy to set up and easy to run on, you still want your basic needs to be fulfilled, which is IT security, you want GDPR considered, you want the meeting to be compliant with your internal structures, internal policies, and of course you would want some kind of visitor analytics. Taking it one level up, you are looking at a platform where we have a little bit more audience engagement, for example, synchronous events, as Lennart just has mentioned, where you want to stream or even provide on-demand content to your audience in a branded environment. So you also want your brand or your product to be represented. If you are then taking this synchronous event into an asynchronous event series where you want to make a platform available for longer, just beyond the time of what your actual event days are, we're looking at perpetual platforms that help you actually build communities. So the need here is very dedicated audience engagement techniques and tools. You would want to have a very flexible and adaptable brand and product presentation opportunities. It's a platform where you need quick changes because your brand or your product representation might change, or you might have additional content to be presented. And then at the very top of the pyramid, we do have our immersive platforms, the immersive experience, where engagement is key, where it is all about the experience and the wow moment. And here we're talking about applications such as metaverse, augmented reality, extended reality, and all that new technology that's out there when it comes to those super immersive experiences. So we do know, having worked in strategic event management for quite some time, that you have events in your strategic year that fit into all of these categories. So is there really a need to find a platform for each of these categories? And actually, with Magnid, we've tried to create a platform that allows you to facilitate all three levels of events, especially the lower levels, in one platform. It allows you to drive efficiency. It gets your data all in one platform. You can brand it. You have your templates. It makes it rather efficient to work with a platform that can actually deliver on all these three tiers of different event types. Looking back at the different use cases, we try to differentiate between your single wow moments, where you need a very immersive, very visually appealing wow kind of setup for your virtual platform, and your long-term home, where we're actually going right into the spectrum of perpetual platforms, where you have your lower complex meetings, which really would be at the bottom of the pyramid, but you could still set it up within Magnid. At the same time, you can do the top-tier events with Magnid as well, making it possible to maximize the return on investment when it actually comes to utilizing a platform. How that looks in reality, Lennart has the answer.
Yes, because in the beginning of the year I was involved in a large project, actually a global merger celebration of two of our main clients. Together, both companies have around 30,000 employees, and they wanted to have them all involved into one day of merger celebrations. Now, the client is as well sustainability focused, so they said, okay, we don't want them to travel, of course. Instead, they wanted to use the over 200 offices they have worldwide as local celebrations, but they wanted to have them connected. So they asked us to come up with a global broadcast where we can capture live content from these local festivities, merge it together with some pre-recorded content to really get a nice TV broadcast show format. And just providing a broadcast would be a bit boring, to be honest. So we thought, no, we want to place it in an immersive way. And we worked, of course, with Magnid in previous events, and we knew about the flexibility that the platform has. So we thought, okay, we don't only want to use it for one day, but we actually want to use it as a long-term digital platform for our client. And how that looks, you can see on the next slide. So in the first picture, we have a very event-focused setup. So here we had very limited areas focused on the broadcast, on the TV show. We have a few interaction there, like polls, we had an event tab and so on, but nothing too exciting because we wanted to give a good virtual experience, but we wanted to focus also on the live festivities around the globe. On the day after, we then launched the full virtual home that we created for them, which is an immersive on-demand brand experience center with a lot of different areas where every employee of the new company can really approach with the new brand, with the new values and so on. And we see that our client is really using this platform still today because over the year they have hosted various in hybrid but also virtual town halls, both regional and global. They have integrated a social media campaign via the platform, and now we are about to launch a virtual experience room as well. So these are just 3 of the 5 use cases that Magnid has defined, but I think that's just a very nice example on how you can actually really combine it into one meeting strategy over the entire year and leveraging that you have one platform and you don't need to invest every time you plan a new event. Now, how can we bring this all together? I know it was a lot. If we want to have a sustainable meeting management strategy, we picked out 3 steps to focus on. Starting with a sustainability policy. So an overarching guidance document that really helps you get this sustainability topic in your event planning, in your everyday planning activities. Step 2 is looking at the events that your client is planning over the entire year and look where you can allow virtual participation. So some events you can host entirely virtual if it makes sense. Others, they need to be in person because networking is in the focus. But maybe you can still add a live stream or something like that to provide a virtual participation and with that already reduce the carbon footprint that I mentioned in the beginning. And step 3 is integrating a digital platform, because over the entire year this digital platform will help you, no matter if it's in person, hybrid or virtual, it will help you to get your content there, to get people engaged even when the event is not happening, and to really leverage the costs over the entire year, the division of the costs.
Yes, so normally we do these kind of workshops with our clients in 2 days. You would try to digest it to 30 minutes, and we hope that was still an inspiration for you. Speaking of the 3 different steps, talking about recommendations for a sustainability policy obviously is very individual to each company, but we try to give you something to take away, which is a checklist with some questions and some justification on when should I go virtual and when should we meet in person. There is no right and wrong answer to this. Ultimately, it has to meet your event goals. So feel free to scan the QR code and take the checklist as a virtual giveaway. And yes, in case there are any questions, we're still here. Feel free to come up to the stage, and we would love to connect with you and discuss any further questions you might have. I'm just going back to the QR code in case with that. So yes, thank you very much for your attention. As said, any questions, let us know.
Thank you so much.